With these 10 ingredients, we're going to make a solid shave bar called a shaving slick bar. Unlike shave creams, butters, gels, and all sorts of other products, this is a soap. It lathers perfectly for shaving, and it can double as a facial and body soap. In this episode of Thermal Mermaid, we're making the Smoke Monster. And as you can see in the demonstration, when you lather with this bar, it has a rich, creamy lather that foams. You can load a brush very quickly, but what makes it different from a straight cream is that there's more lubricant in this lather than there is foam. The result is a very slippery coverage that's perfect for shaving. Now these work just as well in women's fragrances, but today we're making a very clean-cut men's fragrance. Now if you'd like to print this recipe to make it along with me, let me show you where it's located. In your dashboard, scroll down to the recipe directory, click on the goat's milk bars, and then you can find it listed under Men's Shave Slick Bar, goat's milk, aloe, and charcoal. So let's get started. Okay, so as I mentioned, this bar of soap has a quality that stands out. This soap is especially slippery. Now it doesn't have those big fluffy bubbles, and it doesn't have that matte moisturizing quality like a bar rich in butters has. Instead, it's really slick, and this soap kind of sticks to your skin. Now the ingredients that help promote this are the milk and the aloe juice. So as you see here, I'm using 100% aloe juice in my lye solution as a replacement to what would normally be the water content. Now let's get our oils melted down and combined. Now take a quick note that I will not be adding the shea butter into the combination until later. I want this small amount of oil to go a long way in my recipe, so I'm going to hold this off until a few more steps later. Let's get a little prepping out of the way before we start mixing the chemicals. Here I have 1 scoop of powdered goat milk. If your powdered goat milk didn't come with a scoop, then that's 2 tablespoons. Now this is 4 ounces worth of milk, but I want to dissolve this down with as little liquid as possible. In this case, I can get it dissolved into a fluid cream with just 1.5 ounces. Now if you need more water, that's fine, but don't go over 3 ounces. Now I'm ready to make the soap batter. I want to carefully pour the aloe and lye solution into the first 3 oils. I'm going to take my time blending this and get it almost completely emulsified before I introduce the shea butter. Now for those of you who've done this many times before, you know once we hit this stage, depending on your recipe and what you're trying to do, it's usually game on. You're working against the clock to make sure you can get the entire design in before your batter starts to take on a mind of its own and go in a different direction. Well, with this recipe, you can really take your time. You want to get it all emulsified in. You can take your time blending. We don't have too many more steps. It's not very complicated, but it will move really slow and it will behave very well for you. So just make sure that you don't cut corners and skip ahead of yourself, and give yourself time to get those oils blended. And as you can see, I'm going to let the shea butter become the super fat in this recipe. Most of this shea butter will be eaten by the lye during the saponification process, but 5% of the recipe will remain floating in the bar. And since we're adding the shea butter, after the other oils have been able to work in with the lye, it'll be our shea that gets left behind. Next, I'm free to pour in the fragrance, and today I'm using 1.5 ounces of Ferocious Beast from Nature's Garden, which is an incredible musk scent. Now, even though this is a deep musk fragrance, it's a very flighty scent, and it doesn't stand out as being very powerful in the bar. I've noticed that it only lasts about 3 months in a cold process, which means I'll end up blending it with a heavier scent when I finally settle on something that fits it. Next, we'll add the goat milk. Now, this is one of the ingredients that give it that rich, slick texture in the lather. Adding goat milk significantly changes the texture to the lather in almost any soap that you make, but if you get it in the right combination of ingredients, you can get a really slick lather that for a second it almost feels like a slippery snail film, but then it washes right off. Next, I'm going to separate this into 2 parts and pour just a bit of the soap into this cup. This is only about 8 to 10 ounces. It's a part of the Smoke Monster decoration. It has nothing to do with the texture of the lather. And in the cup, I'm going to dump a teaspoon of activated charcoal. And the main soap will get 1 teaspoon of tropical teal mica powder. And we'll take just a few moments to blend this all down. Now the charcoal tends to be really light in the air. You can make a real terrible mess with it. So try to submerge it into the oils before you start blending it. That way it won't puff all back up into your face. And as a last touch decoration, we're going to add 2 tablespoons of poppy seeds into the main soap batter. Now since this isn't a cosmetic cream, it's still a soap, it is suitable to be used as a facial bar. The poppy seeds will double as a light exfoliant. Now over time, when I've had customer feedback, specifically men have told me that they like a heavier exfoliant. And the things that I've been requested for this have been poppy seeds, steel cut oats, and even sand. So when I use poppy seeds, I pack them in men's bars. 2 tablespoons, that's just a bit too scratchy for me. In a woman's bar, I would only use about half that amount. Now once we've finished mixing everything together, we're going to transfer this right into our mold by pouring the main batter first right into the bottom. This will go in nice and smoothly, and once we're done pouring, we're going to put a nice even layer of the activated charcoal soap right across the top. Now I'm keeping this to a minimum as just a small part of the design. The charcoal is really excellent for pulling out impurities, and it has cleansing properties, not so much properties for shaving, and this does not contribute to that slickness that I've described earlier on in the bar. This is purely for decoration. Too much charcoal will also bleed into your water, and this will slide right off the bar. You can see it in the water, and sometimes when people are using it, they'll think it's a black colorant or a pigment, which will stain. This will not stain. Once I have the soap where I want it, I'm going to bring in a hanger swirl. Now I'm not actually trying to make swirls with this, but what I want to do is I want to get the black to have striations and streaks like long, gnarly tentacles reaching down into the blue soap, and hence my smoke monster. So what I'm doing is I'm making very forceful, sharp plunges downward, and then drawing it up along the side, and we're going to go down several times, maybe 20 times, to try to get those streaks and striations in there. And then when we cut it open, hopefully we'll have a really scary smoke monster. Now, once I'm finished playing in my soap, we're going to set this aside for 24 hours to firm up. This particular recipe does need a full 24 hours in order to firm up. It kind of has it's a very heavy, hard oil recipe, so you want to let these firm up for as long as you possibly can. Now additionally, we do have milk in this recipe, so we do want to prevent the temperature from getting too hot because the milk could possibly still burn during the saponification process. So we do not want to gel this soap. Matter of fact, I'm going to pop this in the refrigerator to keep the temperature under control as much as I can. And after 24 hours, we're ready to get this onto our slicing board and cut this open, and you can see what we have going on. And once we get these cut open, we do have a little bit of a surprise waiting for us. Check this out. This entire loaf looks like probably one of the most dramatic partial gel phases I have ever seen in a loaf. And this happens occasionally. It's actually not as much of a troubleshooting problem as it seems like when we cut it open. Check out how the partial gel phase makes almost a complete square around the soap, but it's still very mysteriously light on the inside. Well, sometimes that happens, but also sometimes you get this when you've cut your bar open and it's not done firming up yet, which is exactly what I'm doing right here. I know I told you to wait 24 hours and you will get a much better result if you do, but this is one of the biggest things I am guilty of. I just want to see what's inside, so I end up cutting them open too soon. Now, after a few hours, this effect and texture that you see will go away. Sometimes it doesn't always go away. Sometimes there is a little bit of a parching gel, in which case we would cosmetically fix that a little bit later on, which we've covered in some of our other videos. But in this case, that's what's going on. We've opened up this bar and I jumped the gun and I didn't let it firm up all the way first. So these came out absolutely beautiful. Check out the texture of my smoke monster. I don't know if you remember back in 2005-04 when Lost was out, that's what that crazy monster thing looked. And when the fragrance oil said ferocious beast, that's sort of what I thought of in this bar. Now set these aside for 4 to 6 weeks to cure, and once you're ready to use this bar, you will notice it has a very specific lather and soapy texture to it, which is absolutely perfect for shaving.